What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner, and joining me from the JMA Wireless Dome in Syracuse, New York, it's our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. AJ, I'm going to put you on mute just for a second so I can talk, and then we'll dive into the meat of this. I know you got a little background noise over there in New York, AJ, but Carolina coming off an 88-82 win over Syracuse. We're going to do our best on this video. Like I said, I have AJ muted at this moment, but it's funny because, and I want you to chime in on this, so I'm going to unmute you right here, AJ. You've told me this before, but it's my understanding that the JMA Wireless Dome has some of the worst Wi-Fi in the conference. Is that true?
It's the worst. It's horrible. This is a great communication school. So you'd think that they would be, it's not just for media, it's for anybody, right? Mm-hmm. But the wireless is awful. Adam Smith sat next to me today, and from halftime on the second half, he could not open a photo.
Oh, that's unbelievable, man.
And I was having my Wi-Fi wasn't terrible during the game, but it's really bad. They're breaking down the court. They're turning it over to lacrosse for tomorrow, lacrosse. And so I had to come up here to the concourse, and the Wi-Fi just sucks. So if I'm choppy, I apologize. Maybe some people might like the video better that way.
Yeah, who knows, right? Yeah, we'll make it work. We'll try to bang this out as quickly as we can, too, so we can get some of this background noise and not make you guys too long. But, AJ, I mean, first place we got to start, man. Ian Jackson, Jalen Withers, absolutely fantastic tonight for the Tar Heels. Jackson finishing with 23 points on the night. Obviously, last couple weeks he has struggled big, so that's a big time performance from him. And then Jalen Withers, man, kind of out of nowhere a little bit, but 19 points. Thought he played really well tonight for the Tar Heels. Obviously, both players combining for 42 points on the night. And AJ, I got a stat for you. We talked about this earlier this week, so it's the perfect kind of segue into what we're going to talk about here with Jackson with a bounce back performance. Carolina's 8-2 this season when he scored 18 or more points, and we saw again why he's so vital to North Carolina, especially on the offensive end. Man, those two guys really led the way for North Carolina offensively.
In the last 4 games combined, Ian Jackson and Jalen Withers combined totaled 35 points.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I
think they had 42 tonight.
Yeah, 42.
23 and 19. Mm-hmm. It's the most Withers has scored as a Tar Heel. Mm-hmm. And he almost didn't play. He banged into Cade Tyson in practice yesterday, and his eye's terrible. I'm going to try to screenshot the video when I was interviewing him and blow it up and send out a picture of his eye. It was awful. There was no white anywhere in his eye. And he almost didn't play. It was a game-time decision. And it's funny because a couple of his teammates joked that, maybe with one eye he shoots better. But he's been their best three-point shooter from a percentage standpoint for a while. And RJ said that he wants him to shoot more. And what's interesting is the minutes are there now. I don't know how many minutes he played tonight, but before the Clemson game, when he got back in the starting lineup, he hadn't even played in 4 of the previous 6 second halves. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then he only played 6 minutes against Pitt.
It's 24 tonight. 24 tonight, by the way.
Well, it's pretty obvious that I think Hubert's scrapping the 4-guard lineup. And I talked to Ian Jackson. I asked him about the shots he gets in the 4-guard lineup as opposed to when they go big. And he said, yes, they're different shots and not as many. And he didn't go any further. And I didn't press him to try to be critical of the 4-guard offense. It was more just tell us what kind of shots you're getting. And clearly gets different shots when they're not playing 4 guards on the court. We've talked about that a lot, about what is one of his problems were during that bad 7-game stretch. RJ Davis said today, he basically said, I hope I never see the 4-guard offense ever again. They're just a better and different team. When they go bigger, they can match up more. And goodness, if you're going to get any kind of offense from Jay Witt, who had not scored in double figures since the Auburn game 19 games ago, if you're going to get a little bit of offense from him and get some stuff that they got early on from Jay Wash and Lubin, just makes things a lot better. But the X factor's Ian. Mm-hmm. There's just no doubt about it. Ian Jackson is the X factor. When he's scoring and doing the different things he can do, and RJ plays the kind of game he did. I thought RJ was really good tonight.
Yeah.
He had, I don't know what he had, 15, 16 points.
16 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds too. Big night.
5 rebounds, 2 steals. He had a block shot in the lane. And when was the last time that happened? Yeah. So they did a lot of good things. Look, Syracuse is terrible. I thought Carolina was going to lose this game because I thought Carolina was done. And I thought Syracuse would be inspired after losing to Miami. But Syracuse just stinks. And that's one of the reasons Carolina won this game, because Syracuse stinks. However, you've got to credit the Tar Heels that the guy they need the most to go off went off today. And then Hubert even kind of half joked about it. They needed a third dude to step up. Someone had to help RJ. And then if it's RJ and Ian, they need a third guy to step up and help them. And it was Withers, and they picked up their first road win since NC State 5 weeks ago.
I know. Yeah.
They had lost 4 straight on the road. And if it's not for Withers hitting those threes and having a little 8-0 run by himself, it's not for Withers having his eye bloodied and still fighting through it. And if it's not for Ian Jackson starting to do Ian Jackson things again, this team doesn't win the game. So they needed every bit from those guys, and it was very timely because I thought this team was done. I thought they were going to lose tonight, but Syracuse is worse than I thought, and maybe Carolina's still got a little left in the tank.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely when you're getting that kind of production from a guy in Withers who hasn't really done that this season, not to mention RJ, like I just said, 16 points, even Elliot Cadeau, only 9 points on the night. I know he had some turnovers, especially early on, but he did hit that big layup late as well. So, that was huge, man.
Play.
That was absolutely huge.
Because they were on the ropes. Because it had gone from Carolina led by 10 with 3:53 left.
Yep.
And it's a 2-point game. And the place it was as loud as it was all night. And that was not just Elliot's scoring, but that was a great move. Left-handed, he didn't commit a foul going up. He didn't clear out like he does sometimes. He made the play when it had to be made. So kudos to him for that.
Yeah, it was a really good play on the next play, too, kind of getting the ball down the court and getting it to RJ, who they ultimately fouled. And, you'd rather send a guy like him to the line is essentially Carolina's best free throw shooter. So, yeah, really big back-to-back plays from him, especially with that drive. You talked about runs, though. Let's talk about that because it's funny because it was a game in which Carolina never trailed, but it was also a game in which Carolina was up by 11 4 different times. You just mentioned being up by 10 late. It ultimately ends up being a 2-point game down the stretch. And, that Cadeau drive obviously helps kind of propel North Carolina to the win in the long run. But it's funny because it was a very similar game to what we've been used to seeing with North Carolina, it feels like, especially in these kind of when they're playing kind of these, I don't know if decent is the right word to describe Syracuse, but, these poor to decent ACC teams, it's like Carolina finds these ways to, it feels like a lot of the times, to pull away, but the other teams always get back in it and always ends up being this tight game down the rope. So it was a weird game a little bit because of the fact that Carolina never trailed, because of the fact that they were able to pull away a few times, but then Syracuse would always kind of creep its way back in. It had some of those same similarities, but I also thought had some differences, and obviously the biggest difference being Carolina actually finishing and winning the game. So did it feel like Carolina kind of fed off those runs that Syracuse made a little bit? Like, what was that like in the arena?
Well, they brought up the scissors, giant pair of scissors today, and they nipped it when it happened instead of allowing it to continue. For example, against Pitt a few weeks ago, they were up 10, and in 49 seconds, Pitt had an 8-0 run and was down 2 at the half. They were up 11 here, and Syracuse cut it to 5, and the place was going nuts. And you're thinking, okay, this is where Carolina's doing this end of first half thing again, but they got a 3 from Ian. So whenever there was that push made, 4 times of 11, it gets down to 4, 5, 6. And you're thinking, okay, here's where the Tar Heels start to fall apart. Here's where they unravel. Someone with a bucket. RJ with a huge 3 that rolled in. That was our only field goal for about 6 minutes inside the final 10 minutes of the game. RJ had 2 threes that rolled in. He got the roll on 2 of them today. You had Ian with the 3-pointer. You had him with another bucket that he got. You had Jaywitt with a jumper in the lane against the zone. The zone was starting to give Carolina trouble. Hubert had 3 or 4 different guys in the middle of it over a stretch of about 5 minutes, and then Jaywitt had a soft little floater over Eddie Lampkin. He recognized botting him wasn't going to get the shot off. Go up straight with arc and get the ball in the cylinder, so he did. So they had responses every time. Now, it was 82-80. They went from a 10-point game down to 2 in a pretty quick period of time, in about 2 minutes, a little over 2 minutes. And I had actually written for how it happened, the lead for them winning, finally fending off these things. And I'm like, oh, maybe they're not fending it off. But they did. Elliot's basket, RJ hit the free throws. They won the game by 6. So I thought that they were able to do that. I think Syracuse helped them at times. I thought J.J. Starling forced some shots every once in a while. And there was one possession in which Syracuse didn't even give him a touch. and the possession went 30 seconds. Lampkin ended up getting a bucket on a foul by Jay Wash, which was a questionable call. It was right in front of me as the shot clock expired. But it was kind of crazy how Starling was on fire, and he didn't even get a touch in that possession. So the Syracuse people that are listening, which is probably none, have plenty of their own things to gripe about right now. But as far as Carolina, they took advantage. So you got to credit them for taking advantage. I don't think they ever trailed in the game.
No, they didn't.
And so they kind of had a little bit of control. We talked to Michael Lombardi, the football GM, the other day, and he was talking about not just being in the lead on the scoreboard, but controlling the game at the line of scrimmage. I thought Carolina did that. They were ahead in rebounding most of the game. They had more block shots. They had more steals. They had more aggressive plays. They had more difference-making type plays on the night than Syracuse did. And in order to do that, you had to have the right mojo. And I think it helped their mojo that Ian came in, hit a three right away, and got a steal and a dunk. So it was like, hey, Ian's back. And then Jay Wood hit some big shots for him. So other guys helped feed that mojo. And that's what got them to the finish line.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's talk about what this means, man. It was interesting. Hand up, I haven't seen the post-game press conference stuff yet because they're actually uploading as we're doing this right now. So, but there was an interesting quote that you were telling me about, or something that RJ said about everyone essentially being bought in and now kind of understanding what's at stake going into the rest of the year. And I just muted you, AJ. A little bit of background noise back there, but I think that's interesting, man, because we talked about it midweek. We've talked about it for the last, week, really, in terms of, is this team done? You talked about it earlier saying, hand up, I did not expect this team to go in here and win. I had the same, prediction in our staff picks as well. I didn't have a lot of confidence Carolina was going to go in here and win, but I want you to kind of expand on that RJ quote a little bit too, because that's interesting for me, because we've seen, a frustrated locker room, to say the least. If maybe that's the right way to describe it over the last couple of weeks, as Carolina's been struggling. And now a win like that, I'm not saying it changes the course of the end of Carolina's season. Is we talked about it. Syracuse isn't very good, and there's still a lot of games left for Carolina to play. But I think Carolina can take a positive from tonight when you look at the schedule ahead, because there are winnable games on the schedule. There's no doubt about it. And say, hey, if we come in with the same mindset we had to get Syracuse, and we execute, and we get production from guys like Ian Jackson and maybe some, surprise player like a Jay Withers. I thought, he was exceptional tonight. Maybe Carolina can at least end the season on a strong note. Who knows what can happen if Carolina can, pick up a little steam going into the ACC tournament. So talk to me about that RJ quote and what the locker room was like. But what do you think this win means? Does it change your outlook on the rest of the season for North Carolina, or is it just kind of like, this is a one game at a time team, really? It's the only thing you can do.
Yeah. One thing this team hasn't been able to do with positive things is connect them this year. That's why they're in the situation they're in. They're not going to get 19 from Jalen Withers or anybody outside of Ian and RJ. They can't count on it going into any game. They may get it from somebody, but it's not the kind of thing you pencil in. So they're still going to probably struggle to win games, because we kind of know who they are. But I do think that there was a looseness to this team. In warm-ups, they were unbelievably loose, in a positive way. It wasn't a we don't care. They were really loose. And then they came out and had an extra skip in their step. They were the quicker, bouncier team from the opening tip. And even when Syracuse was making some of those pushes, I thought that I didn't think Carolina had lost its bounciness or its energy or its intensity or focus. It was just they're not always going to make great plays, and Syracuse was able to capitalize in some stretches, and that's when they were able to cut a little bit in the lead those several times that we just talked about. RJ, when I talked to him Monday down at Clemson, I reminded him, I said, I talked to you the other night. I said, it was pretty down. I'm paraphrasing. I said, it was pretty down, almost like, where do we go from here kind of down. So what happened between then and when you guys stepped on the court today? Because collectively looked like a different team. He said that the last 3 days they had their best practices, most spirited practices of the year, and their most intense practices. I guess Cade Tyson nearly taken out Withers' eyeball as part of that. But he said that he thinks everybody's on the same page now. Now, it's easy to say that. And people are probably saying, what does it take till mid-February? Okay, don't worry about all that. Worry about the now. Seth Trimble was close to calling guys out the other night. RJ had almost gotten to a point where I think he was cocooning himself that he wasn't going to talk about others, because it almost, maybe to him, there's no point. And that's the vibe all of us in the media that were in South Carolina got the other night. So you come here today, he said, and RJ has been saying what's at stake. We know what's at stake. And I said, RJ, you've been saying that. Seth has said it, but some of the other guys haven't. And he said that they all understand what's at stake now. There's a collective backs against the wall kind of thing. Now, maybe that's just player speak because they got a win. That was a game they had to fight to the last seconds to get the win against a bad team. However, it is what he said. And I think that there's some truth to it because I saw a different verve from this team when the game started than I'd seen for a while. It had been probably, I'd have to go back to maybe Cal. When I saw the team come out with this collective kind of verve and spirit and bounciness. And let's face it, that's about a month ago, and they haven't been very good since then. So maybe Clemson was the bottoming out. And if it's a bottoming out, one of two things can happen. You just plummet and you stick, or you spring forward. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt right now, saying that they sprung forward. They got State coming up this week, a Virginia team playing much, much better this weekend, and we'll find out. If it's more of the same, they're going to struggle to beat State, and they'll lose to UVA. We'll see. I'm going to side with what RJ said, and at least just say here on February 15th, they were a different team. They were a connected and collectively, they were compatible from all basketball aspects today. I thought there was a lot of sharing of the ball. I thought there were a lot of extra passes. A lot of the assists were kickouts. So guys were aware. They played with their heads up today. So if this is the beginning of something new, we'll see. We'll see what it does for them. But I do think at least it's a positive because they got to win. They feel a lot better about themselves. They got a road win. Look, people say this about Carolina. It's still Carolina. Syracuse is still Syracuse. It's a great history up here. There's a big crowd. It's a big place. I don't know what the attendance was, but I'm guessing about 22, 23, 24,000 at least. And it's a blizzard outside. These people came to see their team play North Carolina. Look at their attendance when they play State next week. There won't be anybody here. So the Tar Heels were able to come get, for them, an important road win.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, I think that's a great way to wrap this one off. It's weird saying a big win for North Carolina because it's when you're talking about beating a 11-15 Syracuse, but it kind of feels like that without Carolina's just been struggling to pick any of those up. So you got to start somewhere. And again, winnable games coming up for North Carolina. Maybe this is the start of something good for the Tar Heels, and they can get hot at the right time. And who knows what happens? But we'll see, man.
Jacob, any win for this group in which they don't have to get fortunate like a BC and Pitt is a good win. Right now for this team. Their last two wins have been, they were as fortunate as could be. They earned the win tonight.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, man. I think Carolina definitely deserved it. And as it showed, never trailing. They were the better team all night. So I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. We'll go ahead and get out of here. Appreciate you guys bearing with us. I think the audio wasn't too bad. I know it wasn't exceptionally great with all the background noise, but I think we've had worse. So we'll keep it moving. And get involved in the comments below. Let us know if you're happy about the win. Like the video below if you're happy about the win. Get in the comments too. Just let us know what you thought about the game. We obviously like to hear from you guys as well, and make sure you keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com for all your coverage from tonight's victory. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks.